boom, winter's coming, boom. I sat on my harmonica I got from an evil psychotic and I threw it out. Boom, boom, winter's coming, boom, boom. Winter's coming, boom, boom, bada bada, boom, boom, bada bada, boom, boom, bada bada. Winter's coming, boom, boom, bada bada. Winter's coming, boom, boom, bada. Winter's coming, winter's coming, winter's coming, winter's coming. Old man winter, mother winter, old man winter, mother winter, young man winter, middle-aged man who lives with his mother winter. Oh boy, what tender mercies fall upon this place beneath, that the number 7 should have a leaf at the top. Nature shows me wonderful letters, symbols, signs. I'm enjoying all of them. Right now there's a swastika. Yahoo to the swastika. I think a lot about reading nature. When I'm criticizing people's minds or psychotics, I think they need to spend more time in nature, ground their ideas in nature. If you have a God, point to your God in nature. Is he in the sky? Is he somewhere here? Is he under the dome? You got to be very suspicious when people say, their God is above everything and you can't point to them. That's that is shocking. It's shocking enough that you would almost believe the power of such a God that could do that to so many people's minds. And in a sense, the God is by definition that which does that to people's minds, that they're so convinced that they can point to their God when there's nothing to point to. So that, in a sense, in the sense of what gods truly are in this world, that is godlike. That is the example of what is godlike, is what makes Islam work psychologically and through magic. Okay, and it's shocking enough, awesome enough, you might say, that you might think it worth your while to be friendly towards it, maybe to just sort of skip over the magical leap in reasoning that's been made in order to, put your critical faculties to one side to make room for these homosexual cocksuckers in your mental existence. Like, who wants to live with Muslims in the world? I mean, everything they do recommends their removal from the planet. Okay. But here's the thing. The souls of these religions are already living off planet. They're not even living off the planet. They're living off of you. Okay. They're living off of you. They're living off of you. They live off of you. Right? Just like maybe you live off cows, they live off you. They live off the Son of Man. Everywhere it is and everywhere it grows, they have to live off of that. They need that sun. And they don't belong where they are, at the level that they live. And they've sent down these curses based in souls that help them feed off of the energy of the Son of Man, because it actually can't even be around the Son of Man. It hates the sun as much as possible. It's like the mold that lives under the viscous film of the chemtrails. It's in that mold, and the mold comes down, and the mold took the form of Jesus and Islam and the Illuminati. It's a colonizing bacteria. And it's touched things, you might say. If you were assessing the conditions on behalf of the king, or while the king was away, in a way that actually recommended yourself to the throne, to the king who never truly went away and just wanted to see who was most qualified to take the throne, that could give the most accurate report of the kingdom to the king if the king were away, and that kingdom had seemed to fall into disarray, when in fact it never had, because the king had never left. And such is our relationship to our immune system. So the soul is a feeding system. Things don't feed on souls, souls feed. And that those souls are created or sent down, and it's touched things. It's touched our heritage, it's touched words, it's touched the Bible. It inspired the Bible, you might say. It inspired the geometrical relationships of men. The first men and women in the Bible who can't, by any definition of their own internal logic, give rise to a genuine mother and father of anyone but a homosexual and a psychopath. A man with a womb that does work and a woman with a womb that doesn't, who looks like a man, a two-man, or a man in this case, taking man and turning it into a woman, a two-man, so that man can be seen to come from man, neither of which could ever be a man. So really just gutting out like a rot, like a mold, everything in man. Just man, gutting it right from the first pages, gutting out love, getting out man, gutting out anything that wants to be able to exert the regulatory power of man's fundamental mind and immune system and heritage. And so you could see how people will rely upon, just like you rely upon your culture, your country, and the things about your culture you're used to, even if they're bad, because they're familiar and you rely on them. You get up in the morning, you don't want to wake up in a completely alien world. And yet people are forced to live in a world that is in some sense always alien to them. And so they actually form a bondage, a symbiotic bondage with their culture, because the very nature of their culture is about being an alien. And these molds are alien. They're alien to the planet, and they live in the atmosphere. And they've actually gotten man to produce chemtrails. And the electrical properties that are being produced through the military allow the mold to spread its intelligence into the subconscious through a hive-like colonizing and bacterial way throughout the entire Earth. So if that which feeds from above is actually a mold in the Earth's atmosphere that has crossed over into our mental functions and has convinced people that what is above you is evil. And the more you think of the chemtrails as evil and you attribute evil to the sky, I know that it can actually start to inhibit your reasoning, even if you've got to the point of being able to see chemtrails. That's how evil they are. Right? No matter what you see in the world, they can command so much power because they're just so desperate and vile and evil to exploit your fear and this, that, and the like. So I said to this psychotic guy, I said, when I see chemtrails now, I actually feel good. I'm getting used to them. I know they're fucking evil, and I'll curse them if I want to. And when I'm doing ceremony like this, it's very hard for them to spray over me. And, and I just take it in stride. That's all. I just, you know what I mean? I don't, there it is, right? My immune system has allowed me to continue living. I understood some of the fears about the increase in respiratory disorders and stuff, and things of this like, molds coming down from the sky. I think we've got more problem than just the average mold coming down from the sky, but learning about that mold and what it can do to my blood, and then how moldy, in a sense, we all are, how bacterial related we all are. So if you think about us being a bacterial organism, then you think of another bacteria gaining some kind of control over this bacterial organism. So like a queen bacterial colony. It's fascinating. And I don't care if it doesn't want people to know about it. The Son of Man will know. And then I think once we understand the evil on this earth a little more clearly, then and only then, people can start to settle down. Because a lot of this evil really depends on hyping people up and on, let's say you start to see the scale of evil in the world, and then always like, how far does this go? Is it ever, if you look around you, even at conspiracy, is it really worth pursuing all of these fucking avenues? Is it improving your social life? I mean, a lot of these people are like me, or very close to it, or worse, right? So, where does it all go? And I think it's important to see evil in its context, always. So that there actually becomes a less stressful prospect if you cross the torrent of evil, the Red Sea of evil, Let's go across the Red Sea of evil, to use a Jewish metaphor, a cursed metaphor. Let's go across the Red Sea of evil. Or let's find in this evil something of the current that is red in our own mother's blood. What would we be without iron in our blood? Man doesn't need to call himself Iron Man, because man is iron. These types of beings, or when they get into people's brains, they think of Superman, Iron Man, X-Man, because they're not man. They think of Superman because what is Superman is not man and seeks to be over man. And this is the psychology of a part of the Earth's bacterial system with respect to what we call our culture, which has become, so putrid in so many ways, so putrefying. But yet, in every way that we can see the putrefaction of the world, we see that life is sustained. That man is of a nature that should we find ourselves in a septic pool of putrefaction from horizon to horizon, we nonetheless find considerable life and consolation in the life, and then so more life in the fundamental strength of the sun that lives in us, of the power of all life. Nothing is so bad that looking upon it cannot make it less. But I think there's many things that I've looked at that have made me feel more and more grievous, more and more pain, more and more isolated, more and more angry, more and more inclined to think myself preyed upon. But also at the same time building up my skill to notice the nuances of what is preying on me in this situation. Because people have opened their minds up to a range of frequencies or fidelities that allow their neurophysiology to actually be controlled by certain predatory aspects of this global mold system. So it creates irritations and it preys, and it doesn't seem to like men, and it doesn't seem to like women. It doesn't matter whether they're homosexual or not. No one ever seems like the world likes them. You ever notice that? And the better they get at living in the world, it never seems like they like you, or they ever will. And I say that a lot of the world, even what the world calls the universe, is actually existing in a thin level of the mind of the planet, which is occupying the minds of a certain kind of mold living in the atmosphere. So you're literally out of your mind. You're in one level of the mind, in all kinds of everything about heaven, the universe, everything about yoga and TV and what's all being said. Even though some of it may seem true, everything being said is really quite cursed. It's a hex. It's a hex on your sex. It's a hex on all kinds of things. And why does something ever stun you? Why does something like a vaccine ever do anything? Because look at vaccines. The mind of the vaccine is the mind of the book of Genesis, right? We're going to help you by destroying part of your body, forcing your body to produce an antibody, which is then going to help us destroy a part of your sexual function, right? While convincing you, because we've applied this vaccine to your mind, that this is good for you. Even though there's no evidence that it ever is, and quite a lot to the contrary. What do you think? And you could look at any religion. What do you think? Right? No evolutionist has ever seen any more evidence of evolution than the theory of evolution. If you notice that the evidence for evolution is the theory of evolution. Listen to people who talk, don't even say, because they pretty much expect that you believe it now. They're so confident, right? The religion has spread. And when something spreads that quickly, you have to ask yourself, what is the antecedent religion? Right? It's like certain medications come in and carried by other molecules. There's another type of molecule or geometrical way that the brain has been used, or the animals of the brain, the beasts of burden have been tasked to be used, that made evolution able to spread as quickly as it was. Because the only evidence of evolution is the story of evolution, and that's very similar to all cults. Right? But if, depending on where you are, you think, oh, all of a sudden, you're talking about a religion that's very close to my heart. You're talking about science. You're talking about things that are facts. So now you know what it's like when you're a child of things you would call religious cults are told things as though they're facts, and will cite those facts as though evidence of those facts, right? Or a book filled with those facts that they've never seen or heard. And it's very confusing, because even if you take a look at the facts you were taught as a child and you question, you'll find another cult over here that's got some other facts, and another cult with some other facts, and another cult, always anxious to give you whatever you need like candy so they can start feeding on you. Just like any average psychotic. Feed. 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 And lo and behold, you may watch yourself allowing yourself to be fed on. I try to keep, I wait till I have a certain amount to give away to people, because I know they're going to feed on me. And then I try to take a little back. So sometimes I have to stay away from people for a while. So as I start on my winter walk is a solitary walk, so everything to do with being around people is now over for me.